loud. Okay, great. So shout out, welcome to everyone watching from the recording. Just shouting out to Eric. If you didn't see in the last newsletter, check out Eric and Maya and Ruben acting out. I don't want to spoil it, but check it out. You'll learn something. And if anyone else wants to make a video, we are open for submissions. And yeah, so anyway, so we're gonna have a video introduction and I'm gonna share the screen. This is gonna all make sense after, so you just have to go with me. So we're gonna watch a few minutes, like 20 seconds of two videos. Okay, so now I'm gonna screen share. And I want you to observe, just observe. Okay, here we go. We are on YouTube. Oh, this is reads. I'm gonna put you all to sleep, hold on. Here we go. Notice the reeds kind of gently bending in the winds. Ah, so lovely. Okay, so there you go. So now you have that picture. Keep that picture in your mind, right? The reeds gently bending and flowing in the wind. Okay, and now video number 2. And this is a cedar, right? This is in Lebanon, cedar. And this is like by, someone was trying to be all cool. So, oh, hold on, I think I have someone in the waiting room. Yeah, okay. Someone was trying to, you know, be all like an influencer and make a cool video. But anyway, just pay attention to the tree. That's the important part.
That's it, right.
Okay. So this is this huge cedar. Whoa. Cedars. Cedars and a person. That's a cool picture. Cedars, cedars. That's not a cedar, no. There's one falling over. It's like, just like.
It's actually pretty warm.
Okay, there you go. So those are, that was our video introduction. Okay, so we had our reeds. So, okay, so let's review. So who would like to describe what was the reed like? What were the reeds like? Marion. Yeah, blowing. Yeah, you're on mute, but yeah, we see, right? They're blowing, they're kind of bending, great. And then we have the cedars, right? Which are like strong, they're straight, they're like, and you know, we saw the one just fall over. It was like, boom, didn't no bending happening there, just boom, fell. Okay, great. So why did I show you all of these things? It's a great question. Okay, here we go. So, whoops, I have to screen share, sorry. Going to learn a fun story in the Talmud, and it kind of starts out, it's bookended by this idea of comparing a cedar tree to a reed. So I thought, I don't know, I always like to kind of think about it and see the actual, what we're actually talking about. So there you go. So we have our reeds and our cedars. Excuse me. Okay, so here we go. So this is in the Talmud. So we already did our video intros. There you go. Thank you to, did you know that the fun fact before we go into this, that the video of the reeds, if you found that comforting, it goes for 3 hours. So if you're having trouble falling asleep or something and you want to turn that video on and just like chill out, that is there. Some kind human made a 3-hour video of reeds blowing in the winds. So there you go. I mean, like, you know, the internet can sometimes be a terrible place, but sometimes it's great. So it's both. It gives and it takes. Okay, sorry, I'm trying to make it so I can see you all. Okay, welcome. So here we go. So now we are gonna start our text. So this is a story in Taanit 20a to b in the Talmud, the Babylonian Talmud, and trying to think if there's anything I want to say about it. No, it has a lot of good stories. Taanit has a bunch of good stories, and here's one, and we'll kind of do 2 reads of it. Reads, spelled R-E-A-D, not R-E-E-D, but you know, okay. Great, so here's how it starts. I'll start reading and then I'll have a volunteer. And I will say, sorry, one more thing before we launch in, that the bold, so if you see kind of some of it is bolded and some of it's not bolded, it's bolded because it's like a literal translation, and then the words that are unbolded is just like helping kind of fill in the gaps. Great. Okay. So there we go. So welcome. I know we had a few new people join. Hello. Glad you're here. So we're going to jump into Talmud's story. It's going to be really fun. And we're comparing cedars to reeds. And we just looked at some fun videos on YouTube if you are curious what reeds look like. They're very bendy. And then we got our cedars that are like strong and straight. Okay, great. So here we go. The sages further taught in praise of the reed, a person should always be soft like a reed, and he should not be stiff like a cedar. Okay, so this is the intro into our story. So I want us to kind of keep this in mind to think about why this is the intro line to our story. But before you do that, would anyone like to kind of say, what do they think they're saying here? What does it mean a person should be soft like a reed and not stiff like a cedar? You can feel free to unmute
yourself. Be flexible,
yourself.
be willing to change.
Yeah, the flexibility. Nice. What else? And if you want to write in the chat, you can do that too. You can feel free to do that.
Well, a reed will bend one way or another, and the tree is solid. It won't bend at all.
Yeah, exactly. Noreen?
Chat is disabled.
What? Oh no. Okay, I will enable it. That's so weird.
There, okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay, got our chat back. Thank you. So now you can actually use the chat. So feel free. So yeah, so right, this idea a person should bend like a reed. Yeah, be flexible. And this story I think will also show us a little bit about what they mean by that. So okay, so here we go. An incident occurred. Wait, actually someone else should read. Would someone else like to read? Yes, please. Yeah, Ruth, were you reading?
An incident occurred in which Rabbi Elazar, son of Rabbi Shimon, came from Migdal Gedor, from his rabbi's house, and he was riding on a donkey and strolling on the bank of the river. And he was very happy, and his head was swollen with pride because he had studied much Torah.
Yes, thank you. Right, so he's literally this person, right? Rabbi Elazar is coming, and Migdal, right? Migdal Gedor is a place, but Migdal means a tower, right? So he's literally coming from like this, almost like this ivory tower, where he's been up studying Torah with the rabbis, and he's feeling very proud of himself because he studied so much Torah. And I think that I remember the first time I studied this, I was in rabbinical school, and kind of relating to this is sometimes in rabbinical school we get like very puffed up and feel like, wow, like we've studied so much Torah, we're just the best, like I'm so smart, which like no, but you know, sometimes feeling that like ego in a way. So here we go, we have someone who's just done a lot of learning, feeling like really you know, puffed up, right? His head was swollen with pride. So okay, so we have this setting of the scene. So there we go. So here, and I think, you know, I've definitely encountered it within myself, but also other people, right? Sometimes when we've learned so much, we get like a little bit puffed up, a little bit out of touch with what's happening around us. Okay, so here we go. So here's where we really get into it. Okay, keep going, Ruth, please.
He happened upon an exceedingly ugly person who said to him, "Greetings to you, my rabbi." But Rabbi Elazar did not return his greeting. Instead, Rabbi Elazar said to him, "Worthless, Rika person, how ugly is that man? Are all the people of your city as ugly as you?"
Okay, so let's pause here. Okay, so what just happened? What's going on here?
That's awful. Why would you say that to a person? Like, they might be ugly, but you don't say you're ugly. Like Rabbi Shem always says, if you go to a wedding and the bride isn't so beautiful, you still say, you know, it's a beautiful dress or it's a beautiful setting, or, you know, they're beautiful. We're inside. You don't say they're ugly.
Yeah, right. So this Rabbi Elazar, has just seen this person, and this person greets him, right? It says, "Greetings to you, my rabbi," like, hello. And what's Rabbi Elazar's response? "You're ugly, like you're worthless, you're ugly." is everyone in your town as ugly as you? Any other thoughts about like what might be going on here? Like what's happening?
Well, he was so puffed up from studying that the first person that he saw, he didn't see that he thought that he was worthless. He looked down upon him, I guess.
Yeah, this is like reminding me a little bit kind of how you were speaking about it, Marianne, like a story we read before, Lag BaOmer, about the rabbis in the cave. I feel like we've referenced this a few times. The rabbis in the cave, and they're studying all this Torah, and when they come out, they're so mad at the other people who aren't studying Torah that they're like shooting lasers out of their eyes and destroying things. And I feel like this is like a similar kind of theme of like not maybe potentially not seeing the value in people because you've just been studying Torah and you think that's the only important thing. And then he comes out into the world and it's like, who, you know, you're worthless. Why haven't you been studying? Type of thing, which obviously is not the way the route, which is, you know, going to come out at the end is not the way we do things. But yeah. Okay, great. So we have Rabbi Elazar has called him ugly and everyone else. And then, okay, Ruth, do you want to keep going? Let's see what he says back. Oops, sorry.
Oops.
Where'd it go? There you go.
The man said, where am I? Oh, the man said to him, I do not know, but you should go and say to the craftsman who made me, how ugly is the vessel you made?
Right, so what's he, sorry, hold on. What's he saying?
That he's a dummy, like a puppet?
Well, I think here, does anyone else have a thought?
He says, go tell God who created me.
Oh.
Yeah, right, so that's why it's like, it's capitalized, like the craftsman, right? Go, if you think I'm so ugly, like, why don't you go talk to God, right? God's the one who made me, and, you know, this idea of like, we're all made in God's image, so if you're insulting me, you're actually insulting more than just me, you're insulting God. Okay, so that's his reply, and then keep going.
Who made, how ugly is the vessel you made? When Rabbi Elazar realized that he had sinned and insulted this man merely on account of his appearance, he descended from his donkey and prostrated himself before him. And he said to the man, I have sinned against you. Forgive me. The man said to him, I will not forgive you. You go until you go to the craftsman who made me and say, how ugly is the vessel you made? So in other words, he has to ask God for forgiveness. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly. Right, so Rabbi Elazar has this moment, right? The man says this thing to him and he's like, oh my gosh, I was totally wrong. You know, this is not what I was supposed to be doing. This is rude. This was not only just rude, it was sin. Yeah, Noreen?
But that's not a good answer from the man that got insulted either. He's not going to give forgiveness. Okay, maybe he doesn't want to forgive him so fast, but to say that the insulter has to go and tell God before he gets any forgiveness, that's not a good attitude either.
Yeah, I mean, I think that.
But isn't like Yom Kippur, when you ask for forgiveness, you're supposed to ask from the people first before you ask from God?
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I think it's a good question. And
well,
Jacob.
Is this kind of what the lead-in is with the cedars and the reeds? Rabbi Elazar, he's sinned, but he's very quickly, like a reed, realized, oh, I messed up, I should ask for forgiveness. But the man who's been sinned against is being very stubborn, and he's like a cedar and not willing to accept the forgiveness that's being asked for.
Yeah, nice, right? This is, I think, a good, yeah, exactly, like thinking about in this story, who's the reed and who's the cedar. And at least at this point, right, Rabbi Elazar seems to be the reed who, like, he was not nice, but then he realized he was wrong and he changed, right? He, like, said sorry, which I think is, you know, that's good. But also, I don't think it's necessarily fair to expect the offended party to forgive the person like that, right? Like, I think that there's a give and take of, like, making sure that they think they're sorry. And, you know, maybe this really hurt this guy's feelings. Like, Rabbi Elazar called him worthless. And I think you know, if someone called me that, it would probably take more than one try for me to forgive them. So I think I have sympathies on both sides. Yeah. Any other thoughts? Yeah.
Yeah, but why should this Rabbi Elazar have to go to God? Like, you know, say, look, I'm not ready to forgive you. I have to think about this for a bit. I mean, I just think that God shouldn't be giving the forgiveness to Rabbi Elazar.
Mm.
You know, I don't know. They're like, it's like you're trying to involve a third party here, and that doesn't always work.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the question is like, who is the offended party, right? So so kind of how you're explaining it, the offended party is this guy, right, who is the one who was called ugly. But I think the guy himself is saying, actually, you sinned against God. So maybe the insult was directed at me, but actually the person you were insulting is God. So God is actually the aggrieved party. And so in order to have forgiveness from the correct person, you have to go to God. Or at least that's how I'm understanding it. But yeah, maybe he's kind of trying to, you know, push him off or triangulate. Yeah. Okay. Any other thoughts before we keep going? Let's see the conclusion. Yeah.
I was just going to say that I think it's a pretty big thing that he said, because it shows a lot of lack of social awareness to say to a human being that you're ugly. So I don't think he should be forgiven so quickly.
Yeah. And I feel like especially because this person's, I don't know, at least for myself, like this person's a rabbi, this person studied Torah, is supposed to be an example, and this is kind of the opposite of what it should be. Yeah, totally, Mindy. Okay, you ready for the continuation? What's gonna happen? So much suspense. Dun, 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 dun. Would someone else like to read? Sorry, I can't get the Hebrew. Both. It's kind of annoying. Whatever. Okay. Yes, Jacob.
He walked behind the man, trying to appease him, until they reached Rabbi Elazar's city. The people of his city came out to greet him, saying to him, "Greetings to you, my rabbi, my master, my master." The man said to them, "Who are you calling my rabbi, my rabbi?" They said to him, "This man who is walking behind you." He said to them, "If this man is a rabbi, may there not be many like him among the Jewish people." They asked him, "For what reason do you say this?" He said to them, "He did such and such to me." They said to him, "Even so, forgive him, as he is a great Torah scholar."
Awesome, thank you. Right, so the wording's a little confusing, so I'll explain. Right, so they're both kind of walking together, and they've reached Rabbi Elazar's city, right, because he's going from his learning place in his Migdal Gador to his city, and the people come out to greet him, and right, they say, both of them, right, in this moment we find out both of them are rabbis, right? That's why they repeat it twice. And rabbi here isn't like literally, sorry. Rabbi here doesn't necessarily mean like ordination in the statement, but like teachers, right? These are two people who are held in high regard. So we learn that here, which is like dramatic plot twist, right? And the man says, "Wait, who are you calling rabbi?" And they said to him, right, "The person walking behind you. So not only are you rabbi, but he's, you know, not only you well learned, but this guy behind you is also learned as well." And so then this guy, I feel like he should have a name. It's kind of, but I'm just going to keep calling him this guy. Sorry. So this guy says, right, "If this man is my rabbi, is a rabbi, may there not be many like him among the Jewish people," right? Like, man saying, this guy's Rabbi Elazar, not a good guy. And he did such and such to me. And the town is like, okay, like he messed up, but you should forgive him because he's a great Torah scholar. So there you go. Any thoughts before we
Yeah,
yes.
I don't think just being a great Torah scholar is a justification for being easily forgiven. I think he needs to be a better person from his heart before he gets forgiven.
Yeah. Do other people agree with Noreen?
To further that, they're just looking at, it's like saying, well, a man is rich, so you forgive him, because he's powerful. The same thing, just because he's a Torah scholar doesn't mean he's a mensch, that he's a good person. So, you have to look beyond that. Like we say that all the time, that people can be studying all day, but that doesn't mean that they're good in business or that they're good with their family or they're a good husband or father. So that doesn't make them a good person, just being a Torah scholar.
Right.
So,
what about great Torah scholars who won't talk to you or I because we're women, or we don't cover our heads, or
that's a whole other story. But
no, but you're saying because he's a great Torah scholar, he deserves to be forgiven. I don't think so.
No.
Yeah. I mean, I think that just like anyone else in any other occupation or expert in any other, academic or not field, right? Like there are people who are Torah scholars who are not good people, and there are people with Torah scholars who are great people. And I mean, I think
but he not only insulted the man. If you go back, he insulted the town. Like he insulted everybody.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
And they're quick to forgive, which doesn't make sense, because that seems to be a higher level that they're holding him. They're forgiving him his transgressions, which they shouldn't, because he insulted not only the man, but he insulted them as well, the people that are saying that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, he did a lot of insulting. And also, right, there's the fact that he also, apologized and asked for forgiveness.
But there's the story with the feathers. It's the same thing. Once you let it out of your mouth, it's hard to put it back in. So, in other words, you have to be careful what you say. And it's not, it's fine to say forgive and forget, but there are some instances where that was being downright cruel. And I think that takes a lot more than saying, I forgive you and forgetting,
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think there's a lot to think about and talk about around forgiveness and asking for forgiveness. And right, like if we even think that Rabbi Elazar has adequately apologized and asked for forgiveness. And it's also interesting that they're both teachers here. So they both kind of have a similar status. But okay, so there we go. So do you want to see how it all ends? Are you ready? And then we're going to read it in a different way. And you're going to be like, what? Okay. So, okay. Who would like to, Jacob, do you want to read? Keep going.
I'll finish it. He said to them, for your sakes I forgive him, provided that he accepts upon himself not to become accustomed to behave like this. Immediately, Rabbi Elazar, son of Rabbi Shimon, entered the study hall and taught. A person should always be soft like a reed and should not be stiff like a cedar, as one who is proud like a cedar is likely to sin. And therefore, due to its gentle qualities, the reed merited that a quill is taken from it to write with it a Torah scroll, phylacteries, and mezuzot.
Oh, what a great ending. Thank you, Jacob. Okay. Don't worry, I didn't write this, so it's okay. I can say that. Right, so what happens?
I didn't know that a quill was made from reeds. I thought it was made from like a turkey or something feather.
Yeah, I think it's a really good question. I'm pretty sure like an old-fashioned quill, like not necessarily a Torah quill. But why don't we look that up, because I don't want to tell you the wrong information.
No,
But yeah.
Like I never heard of it being from a reed.
Yeah, it looks like, according to a quick Google search, it looks like it could be a reed or like a feather. Could be either. So either one is acceptable.
Oh. Okay.
But that's not a halachic ruling. So if you're writing a Torah, ask an expert. That's not me. I'm sorry. But yeah, so reeds can be used to write a Torah scroll, right? For anything we're writing, mezuzot, tefillin, all of that. Yeah. So we have to kind of go back to the beginning of the paragraph, right? So the man, right, forgives Rabbi Elazar, says, provided that he accepts upon himself not to become accustomed to behave like this, right? Like, don't go around calling people worthless. It's not nice. And what happens immediately, Rabbi Elazar, right, enters the study hall and teaches a person should always be soft like a reed and he should not be stiff like a cedar. So what do you think it is about this whole story or this interaction that inspires Rabbi Elazar to teach this?
Okay, I think he learned something about himself, that he had to be more flexible, but I don't like the generalizations that you should always be soft like a reed and not be stiff like a... There's a time and a place for being flexible and for being firm. There, you can't be only one or only the other. You have to combine them, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely, that's an interesting point of when does it make sense? Like, we need to be flexible and where sometimes we do need to stand firm. Yeah, I think Eric in the chat, as usual, lighting up the chat over here. This question is Rabbi Elazar comparing himself to the reed or the cedar, right? Because if he's comparing himself to the reed, then it's a bit of a humble brag that he changed and was forgiven. Yeah, I think that's a really good question. That's actually something I was just thinking about. Is he saying, oh, because I realized I had to change my ways, I was like a reed, and so I'm so amazing and great? Or was he recognizing that he was the stubborn cedar? Like, maybe at the beginning of the story, he was the cedar because he was, all puffed up on his Torah learning. Yeah, what do you think, Eric?
I like Eric's explanation. That's very good.
I think the amazing thing is I think the ambiguity is probably intentional, and that you can read it both ways.
Yeah, right. It's kind of interesting because if Rabbi Elazar is praising himself and saying, oh, you should be like a reed and not like a cedar, and I was so much like a reed, it's almost like he's being like a cedar, right? Because he hasn't changed his ways. Because if he's saying, oh, everyone should be like me, that's kind of where we were at the beginning, right? Yeah. So it's like this, almost like this paradox. Like, if he thinks he's a reed, he's actually a cedar, but maybe, so yeah, definitely different ways to take it. Yeah, other.
Okay, your question, I can't remember who asked about writing the Torah scroll and it being a feather, but when they wrote on papyrus, and also in Mesopotamia, when they wrote on the cuneiform, did they not use reeds? Maybe that was what was handy.
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine it's probably easier to get a reed than a feather.
Yeah, we have to put ourselves in their time frame. And
yeah, right. But even so, like, here, it's not just like, oh, this is what we're writing, but they're assigning meaning to the fact that we're using a reed to write our Torah scrolls, right? That this value, there's this value to this flexibility, being bendy. Not necessarily physically flexible. I'm not. Whatever. It's good to whatever. Anyway. Okay. Yeah. Other reactions to this. Yeah. Oh, Devar, are you saying something? You're on mute. Oh, unmute. Here, I'm gonna unmute you. I unmuted you. Oh, no. Hold on. Wait. Okay, there you go.
Okay, I tried to send a chat. I don't know why it didn't work, but I wonder whether both people had to be more flexible in this story, because the man who was described as ugly had to actually forgive the rabbi too. So that's how I take it. I don't know how to send a chat.
Yeah, you can send a chat. You just press the return button. It's not very obvious. that you could try it. And well, I'll read what you said as well. Yeah, I mean, I think that there's, it seems like the second rabbi eventually does relent. Yeah, I'm just thinking about the behavior of, rabbi number 2.
Does he really forgive him? It doesn't sound like it.
I mean, he says, right, like, I guess that's a good question, and we can see, right, I mean, all I have is the text here that says, for your sakes, I forgive him, provided that he, not become accustomed to behave like this. Right, so at least he said the words, right? He said the right words. I can't tell you how he was feeling. We can only guess, but he said the correct words. Right,
well, he's attaching conditions. I forgive him provided that.
Yeah.
That's like a left-handed compliment.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think yes, and at least here, like, at least for me, I would want to know if someone was mistreating me, that they're not going to do it again. Like, I don't think it's necessarily a unreasonable request. But right? Or maybe he should have been more reed-like and just saying, "I forgive you."
But he's comparing the reeds to writing a Torah scroll and the mezuzah and the tefillin and so forth. And is he putting himself in that class and saying, do not be stiff like a cedar? But there are times when people should be stiff like a cedar. So is he saying that only people that are stiff like a cedar, he said, that are likely to sin? I don't think so. Not necessarily.
Yeah.
Well, it kind of looks like Rabbi Elazar changes over the course of the story, and that's why he's saying, don't be proud like a cedar because you're likely to sin. And then in saying that, he's again insulting the other rabbi because the other rabbi is being unforgiving still. He says, oh, I forgive him, but, and that's not how you're supposed to say sorry. So he's actually saying to him, you should be soft like a reed, like me. I know that I made a mistake, so forgive me still. It's kind of a backhanded compliment from him right back.
Yeah, like that exchange is really interesting. That he says, okay, you're forgiven provided this, and then he's not like, Rabbi Elazar's not like, okay, sure. He immediately teaches this thing that you could definitely take it as like a dig at the other rabbi. Yeah, there's so many layers. Okay, I see Eric has some good stuff in the chat, so I'll just read it. The beautiful rabbi, I like that. The beautiful rabbi, yes, was trying to teach Rabbi Elazar a lesson in a way that is hopeful, that Rabbi Elazar is savable. Yeah, so maybe it's like a good way of being firm, of saying, okay, I'm not just going to forgive you. I want you to actually change, right? Like, and sometimes it's helpful. I know for me, like when people actually hold me accountable for stuff and not to say, oh, it's okay, but say, no, actually, like this was hurtful, or, you said this thing wrong. And then it actually allows us to change when we're held accountable. And then he said, even a reed doesn't bend all the time, but when it encounters something stronger, it bends rather than what breaks, I would assume. Rather, the cedar cannot bend and breaks when something stronger comes along. Yes. Yeah, so there's a lot there. And it's interesting because I feel like there's a lot of ambiguity in the story. Right? We're not sure, like, who's the reed, who's the cedar, who are we praising? Did Rabbi Elazar actually learn a lesson, or is he just kind of being like an annoying egotistical person? Right, there's a lot of ambiguity, and I think the closing sentence is really interesting, that like the closing sentence has less of, right, that's the one that doesn't have ambiguity, right, that therefore due to its gentle the reed, right, the reed merited that a quill is taken from it to write with the Torah scroll, phylacteries, and mezuzot. And I'm just looking at the Hebrew. so my question for this text, and I'm not sure, so the Talmud is kind of put together. It's like an oral document. It's put together, has many different layers, and the latest layer is the stam, and it's kind of the editorial voice. So usually you'll get like a story from earlier, and then you'll get the editorial voice that'll say, and this is what you should take from it. That kind of came later. And my question is this, and therefore, right? And therefore, due to general read merited, the quill is taken from it, this part. Is that part of Rabbi Elazar's teaching? Or is that kind of, this is the moral of the story? And I'm just looking. So in the Hebrew, so what clues do we have? Well, one clue that I'm looking at, we're like getting into the weeds here. The weeds. Okay, sorry. Is, so here's the sentence. I'm just, I mean, it looks like
safer.
Same, because usually, right, like the later voices are written in Aramaic, but most of this is Hebrew, right? Like lefichach zacha kana, because I feel like I can read it, which means it's not Aramaic. And yeah, so that is saying to me that it's probably part of his teaching. But I'm sure that, you know, again, I think it's ambiguous. I'm just trying to look at what the other things are. Yeah, because this is all in Hebrew for the most part.
So is it saying that being a reed it's more beneficial because look at all the good that a reed can do, such as writing a Torah scroll, that everything isn't just studying a Torah scroll, but if you're writing one, you're using the reed, which I don't know, seems to be very important.
Yeah.
And so that we should be more, have that gentle quality that you see in these scrolls and in, you know, the things that we use, the Torah scroll to fill in a mezuzah that we use every day. That a reed is that important, that the merit is there, that it has a gentle quality.
Yeah, we're getting this importance that the reed is doing all these important things, and it should teach us about how to be. And Eric is asking some interesting questions here again in the chat, right? Like saying it's a difficult relationship to Torah. Is it suggesting that the Torah is bendable, or is that the Torah should teach us to be bendable? Yeah, because the reed, this bendable thing, is used to write a Torah scroll. And then like, what would that even, to kind of add a question onto your question, what would that mean for a Torah to be bendable?
Didn't the cedars, weren't they part of making the Beit HaMikdash? Like they used the cedars of Lebanon?
Yeah, I mean, I know that there's a lot of like liturgical references to the cedars of Lebanon, right? Arzei Havanon. I think you're right, Ruth. But yeah, like the cedars also have a special place in kind of the Jewish heart, or, you know, in our liturgy and in our writing. So it's not just like, oh, the reed is all that. Like both of these things have value. It's just, at least here, the reed is getting the spotlight shown on it. Yeah.
I think part of it is the not that the Torah has to be bendable, but that the interpretation has to be varied. Like that we should be able to read it, and you can read it like literally what the words are saying, but the lessons can change. Like today you can read that story, and because of your mood or because of something that happened or whatever, you get certain lessons. But tomorrow you might read it and you're feeling different, you're cranky or whatever, so you get different lessons. So I think you have to be able to take all kinds of lessons from the Torah, which maybe the Torah is the cedar tree, and we kind of change, you know, from what we learn from the Torah.
So yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely could be that way. I could see us also having an interpretation that the Torah is like the reed. So if we think of a reed, right, like when it bends, it doesn't mean it's changed. It's just kind of like assumed a different, you know, the reed is still the reed. It's just assumed a different position. And so could that be like the Torah in that, you know, there are different ways of seeing it, but it's still the same Torah. It's still the Torah. It's just looks a little different because of, you know, where it is or the forces acting against it.
Yeah, different point of view.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's interesting to think about. Is the Torah the reed, or are we supposed to be the reed, or both, or neither? Yeah, all of those questions. Okay, so I want us to read. We're gonna do another read through in a different way in a moment. But are there any other thoughts right now that people are like, I have to get this out there, or I'd like to share? It doesn't have to be so urgent. Okay, so now I learned this text, and I'm forgetting who taught me this read of it, and so I'm doing a bad job. But some awesome person taught me this, so it's not my own, but I remember learning. Wow. Okay, so here's what's going to happen. The person that Rabbi Elazar insults is himself. Okay, so we're going to read it that he's talking. I know, crazy. We're going to read it like he is talking, that it's like he's having this like it's an internal voice. Okay, so that's how we're going to read it and see how it reads. And yes, okay, so we don't need to read the first paragraph. All right, so here we have this rabbi, and he's feeling good about himself because he's studied a lot. Okay, right, and then his like the other part kicks in, right? Like I know, you know, sometimes we have that like negative self-talk. So we have our like positive, we have our negative self-talk that's coming in, right? So here is Rabbi Elazar's negative self-talk, right? So he happens upon this ugly person, which is actually a part of himself, right? And says hello, and right, Rabbi Elazar says to himself, "You're worthless. How ugly are you? Are all of the people in the city as ugly as you?" Right? And again, he says back, "I do not know, but you should go and say to the craftsman who made me, how ugly is the vessel you made." When Rabbi Elazar realized that he had sinned and insulted, you know, himself in a way, he descended from his donkey and prostrated himself, said to him, "I have sinned against you, forgive me." And said to him, "I will not forgive you until you go to the craftsman who made me and say, how ugly is the vessel you made." And so it's like this really intense internal conflict of, the one hand, the person who feels like, wow, I'm so great. I studied all this Torah, I got all this stuff done. And still there's that other side who feels like he's worthless. Like it doesn't matter how much studying he'll do. He's never actually going to be worthy of anything. What do you make of this take? Ruth, you're shaking your head, so you're not buying it.
Except that when they come to his own town, there's they meet two people.
Well, they could just be saying like, "Oh, my rabbi." Yes, I mean, yeah. But it could also all be like in his head in a way, right? Like he's.
No, they're greeting him, and there's another man there.
Look, I'd say like, who are you calling? Like, who are you calling my rabbi? I don't see anyone. I don't see any rabbis here because I don't consider myself a rabbi, right? Like, I don't see anyone here who's a rabbi. And they're like, "No, we're calling you a rabbi."
No, because he says to this man who is walking behind you. So there's another person there. I don't know. That's what I think.
A little far-fetched.
I guess.
Could it be a shadow?
Sorry.
The man walking behind, could it be his shadow?
It could
Oh,
be.
yes, the imposter syndrome. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. So Eric, it's written, your master's thesis on the imposter syndrome. Yeah, like that's something I was thinking about too, right? Do you want to share a little bit about what that is?
My thesis wasn't on the imposter syndrome, but my thesis was something mapping. But I had the feeling of imposter syndrome. Like you write this thing and you look at it as like, who did that? And that wasn't me. This is, and you have this feeling, I hope nobody finds out that I can't really do this. So I can sort of sympathize with the feeling of, having maybe completed something because he's leaving, and then this sort of disbelief of like what just happened. That can be a very real thing. You don't really think about the Talmud talking about mental health issues like this in such a way, but I mean, it seems like a very real thing. It's like feeling that you're two different people.
Yeah.
Then the end sort of doesn't quite tack onto that, but
yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that maybe up to a certain point in the story, we like got it really strong, and then we're like, well, it's a little bit more. But yeah, like I think it's a cool read to kind of look at it like thinking about an imposter syndrome, thinking about, okay, this person, he studied all this Torah, but he's like, I'm not actually worthy, or I don't actually know anything, and I'm worthless, and Reka is like empty, like I'm empty, I'm not actually full, and yeah, like to and kind of that leads him to insult himself and not just and kind of have this back and forth, and right there's a side of him that says, okay, like no, you're made in the image of God, but the other part of him that's like, I'm there's nothing I can do that'll make me worthy, and ultimately he's kind of forced to accept that like that he is the rabbi, but I think that there's still that like tension there of like, yeah, that tension of worthiness. And I think even though, imposter syndrome, those words are new, I would imagine that there are definitely rabbis or people back in the day who felt some level of that. I don't know, I can't ask them, but I feel like it's very human to kind of question our abilities.
I think that this interpretation squares better with the ending, even though that middle paragraph kind of says it's weird, because it's about having a growth mindset is what it says then. You should be soft like a reed. You should be willing to grow and change, rather than stiff like a cedar. You're stuck in your ways. You're having this mindset of I am who I am and I can't change. And in this case, he was kind of saying, oh, I suck. But this way, if you're soft like the reed, you can change, you can be better, you can become a better person. So even though there's the weird thing in the middle where they are definitely talking to two people, the interpretation where it's the metaphor of him talking to himself works better with the moral we're trying to get to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love the words you put on this idea of a growth mindset. And yeah, the read is not just being able to change, but yeah, acknowledging that we can always do better and grow and increase our knowledge and our awareness and all of that, and approaching the world in that way. Yeah, nice. I see Eric in the chat says it does make the ambiguity as who is the reed and who is the cedar make more sense, because Rabbi Elazar was both. Yeah. Definitely, right? Like you said it well, because there's both happening throughout. We all contain multitudes, as they say. Yeah. Any other thoughts of this read? People like it, don't like it? Are we on team Ruth or team Jacob / Eric maybe? It's okay, we don't have to be teams. But what are other thoughts? Is this idea kind of ringing true to you, or at least in your own experience?
We made such a case for the first part that it's sort of hard to to, you know, just like to change it, to go from one thing to another. You have to think about it.
Yeah.
And reevaluate it, I think. And I think what Eric is saying is quite true, but who is he both? Is he the reed and the cedar? Or is he saying I have to be more like the reed and also maybe strong like the, and the cedar as well? I have to be both people. I have to be strong in my commitment to Torah, but I have to be nice to people, sway with, you know, and be nice to people, and have a good heart and not be mean, you know, be nice.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think, right, we're seeing both the positives and the negatives of both the reed and the cedar throughout the story. Either reed, right? Whether we have the reed, the READ reed of two people or of one, right? Either interpretation, I think there's like something to be said for each type. And Devorah says, I wonder whether both people have to be more flexible. Maybe, yeah. And the reed quote reminds me of Harry Potter wands. Yes. Yeah, maybe a reed. Yeah. It's all about wands too. It's not just a writing implement, but also for making magic. Yeah, I'm even thinking about well, so when I was going over this and thinking about teaching, an example that was coming to my mind was thinking about, like, just in terms of, I've just been thinking about masks a lot, like the face mask, and in the US there's like a whole thing about wearing them or not wearing them, and it's become political and the whole thing, and right at first we were told don't wear a mask, like they won't help. And then later we were told actually they do help. And this is kind of cedar versus reed, right? That there are people who are like, you told me at first it doesn't help, so I'm not going to listen to any other guidance. And people who are reeds are saying, well, actually, you know, we thought one thing, but the science was evolving, and so we have to change. And so enabling us to kind of change and bend. And this idea of, like, as we learn more information, whether that be about like COVID or whether that be about, whether that be about the world around us, that we can change our opinion and we can bend. And I feel like in some ways there's like a pressure to stay the same. When politicians change their mind, they're called flip-floppers. But maybe it's actually a good thing to change your mind, because it means you've learned and you've grown and you've thought about something. And, you know, when you come across new information, and I'm sure we've all had our opinions changed at one time or another, you come across new information, like, that's a good thing your opinion changes. If your opinion is based on, you know, learning things and you learn something new, like, you know, to be like that reed and to kind of be willing to change and to reevaluate. And like Jacob was saying, have that growth mindset. Yeah. Any other thoughts?
And then there are people like Cedar who will never change. It's their way or the highway.
Yes. Maybe we need some more reeds. Maybe we need some more reeds in our government. Yes. Mindy.
I'm still really like that psychological analysis of it's one person, and one person's opinion of themselves can fluctuate so much dependent on the situation, dependent how they feel. And it's sort of our internal conflict, right? Because we're always trying to maintain a good self-esteem, but yet in a certain instant, we can't. And we're fighting. We're saying, you know, we're not so bad after all. You know, we're not such a bad person. And I like Jacob's take about, you know, the growth, right? The reed leads to personal growth. You know, I may have thought this way, but you know what? I can think this way. And I just love that analysis of it.
Yeah, thank you, Mindy. Yeah, right, like this idea, right, going back to the image at the beginning, again, even when maybe our opinions change, like we're still the same person, right? We're still the reed, but we've just bent a different way. And yeah, I think that's interesting to think about. Yes, and we can go now and watch 3 hours worth of the read video on YouTube. Just search like read. I think I searched like read in wind or something like that, and I got that masterpiece. So I'll go look at it. But yeah, well, thank you all so much for joining. I know I loved tonight having this discussion, and thank you for sharing your opinions and being here. And I don't know, I think one of the things that I really love about the Talmud is there is all that ambiguity and really. But like there's that ambiguity in those questions, and it makes it so that we can have so many different interpretations. But there's also things that like are still relevant to our lives. I think thinking about in what ways are we Cedars and in what ways are we reads is something that's like really helpful to think about even now. And yeah, and how do we want to maybe change in those ways? So yeah, so same time next week. I'll find something else fun for you to do, for us to all learn together. And yeah, have a good night.
And Mazel Tov again, Rabbi
Mazel
Walker.
Tov.
Mazel Tov again.
Mazel Tov in our little group.
Thank you.
See you in
Mazel
Purim.
Tov. Yeah.
Mazel Tov.
Must be exciting. Must be
Yeah,
exciting there.
it's exciting.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for the question.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.